Isaiah 58, verse 11. The Lord will guide you. He will satisfy your needs in a sun-scorched land and will strengthen your frame. You will be like a well-watered garden, like a spring whose water never fails. Is that a promise or what? He's promised to keep us healthy and well and nourished and strengthened. I mean, what else could we want, really? So anyways, then in Proverbs 28, verse 19, those who work their land will have abundant food, but those who choose fantasies will have their fill of poverty. So I think the Lord knows what he's talking about, all right? A lot better than we do. So with that said, I would just like to offer a word of prayer. Our Father in heaven, thank you. Thank you for bringing us together as a group, as a family, and as your children. We're all learning as we go, Father, and we don't know much, but we rely on you to teach us and to lead us and guide us in this path. We want to prepare for the last days of Earth's history here, and the survival garden everyone's going to have. So we pray that you bless the work of our hands, that you bless each and every heart, and that you carry our feet, Father, to that place where one day we will dance on the sea of glass. In Jesus' name I ask. Amen. So thank you again. In terms of culinary, I'm a little bit torn. I'm going to have to pick this up. I'm a little bit torn because I'm a gardener. I'm a farmer from way back when, in the 70s. I started that love of gardening, and I've always continued it. Every place I've ever lived, I've had some kind of garden. And now I have a small garden, like I have a 1/4 of an acre of land, and I call it small plot, high yield gardening. I don't know all the technical terms, biological terms, or any of that stuff, but I can tell you I know how to grow food and work with plants. Plants are intelligent. Plants have feelings. Probably other people don't realize that, but I feel that they do. Jared, do you think so? They're intelligent. You can give me that. They're so smart that they can send out these little fungus and mycorrhizal fungi and those microbes out to get what they need. So if I need calcium, sorry, I need a drink. If I need calcium, I can't send anybody out to get it. But the plant, it sends these little things out and they bring back calcium or the nitrogen, whatever it is that they need. It's probably a very simplified way of looking at it, but like I say, I'm not a trained botanist or anything. From a culinary perspective, I work with this stuff for the last 50 years almost as a professional chef. And the more I deal with herbs, the more I realize that they're not just tasty and they don't just smell good, they're also good for you. So God made everything, right? And if he made everything green and he made it all with different properties and whatnot, then it encourages me that we need all this green stuff in us because our cells need to be replenished by those cells, right? So they carry the nutrition to us and the water. And so we have to make sure that we give that to them. And that's part of what Jerry's all about, I know. He's all about the soil. And I've learned a lot from him in the last couple of years about the soil. So if the soil is high in minerals, your food's going to be high in minerals. If it's depleted, your body's going to be depleted from eating it. And it's not going to smell good, and it's not going to taste good, and it won't be good for you, really. And also, I do only organic, so it can be done. People that say, oh, it can't be done. Oh, it certainly can. And it's so much better for the not just the environment, but also for our personal bodies, because we don't want to put poison in our bodies. Our bodies were not created to process harsh chemicals, and they got to go somewhere. So where do they go? They go to your brain usually. They have an affinity for the central nervous system, the heart, the lungs, and the brain. So they got to go somewhere, so people end up getting cancer and whatever. So, with that said, take care of the soil. And I have learned that you have to really attend to it. It's not for the faint of heart. I can tell you, though, that it's very rewarding when you do it, and the food is so beautiful. I mean, you know, this morning I went out, I picked 3 or 4 kinds of kale growing right now. They're a little wilty now, but this morning I went out and picked kale, 2 kinds of lettuce, Swiss chard, and in here was arugula and a couple of kinds of kale. I'm keeping it in water down here, but you know, this is probably one of the best foods you could eat right here, kale. And you can eat it in so many different ways that it's like incredible, really. Between smoothies and putting it in salads and whatever. You know, it's very versatile and highly nutritious. Now, what I started doing the last few years, I started really concentrating on the harvest. More so than before. I would just grow it because I loved it, and I eat it and share it and give it and all that stuff, right? But then in the winter, it's like, wow, I really miss that basil. Oh, I really miss that lemongrass, or, you know, what, mint or whatever. So I started doing a lot of dehydrating. And you're more than welcome after to come up and open these and smell them. I mean, it's like, you know, it's like almost fresh. You know, it smells almost fresh, you know, because it is clean, it's taken care of properly. I mean, we need to have a whole class on nothing but dehydrating so that people know how to take care of the stuff in their garden. But like now, this is mint. Oh, just has this wonderful fresh fragrance, you know. I started creating different seasonings because of course I'm a professional chef, so I'm always cooking, right? But even you guys, you're always cooking for your family. Every day you got to eat, right? So I came up with several different herb mixtures. So I dehydrated all the different things. Like say in here would be parsley, chives, thyme, onion, shallot, garlic. So I dehydrate all of them different ways, meaning like the garlic, for example. I might take that garlic and either slice it or chop it or make a puree out of it. When you make a puree out of it, if you have a dehydrator, you just spread, you have to get a certain kind of sheet, that it's a silicone kind of sheet that goes on there. But you just spread it on there and you dehydrate the garlic, and you have garlic all winter. And sometimes I mix it with other stuff. So in here is, let's see. In here is onion, celery, chives, and parsley with sweet Vidalia onion. That'll give that beautiful flavor to your food. In here is Genovese basil. This is lemongrass. Make great tea with that, or you know, use it in sauces and things. And then this one's just an onion salt. So let's see. I think I had 5 kinds of onions last year. So out of those onions, I just take and cut them up and dehydrate them, and then put them in the food processor if they're really dry. Now these things take a long time. Like onions have a lot of water. Most plants are 70, 80% water, right, Jerry? Maybe celery might even be 90, 95 maybe. I don't know. With that said, I want to stress, please water your celery. If you don't water your celery, it's going to come out these beautiful, maybe green stalks, but you cut them and they're going to be hollow inside, nothing. So celery is, like I say, 90, 95% water. If you don't water it, it's going to be hollow. So we have a very strict watering policy at my house. Every other we do every other every other day, first thing in the morning, 7 a.m. It takes about an hour and a half to water everything. So it sounds like, oh wow, that's an awful lot of water. It takes a lot of time. Well, this year I said to my husband, I'm going to help you because he's my water man. He's my number one water man. I said to him, this year I'm going to buy you a wand, a watering wand. The thing extends out about 10 feet. So you push a little button, out the thing goes, right? And what you need to learn is deep root watering. I don't know where Jerry stands on this because he's the professional and I'm not. But I can tell you this. With the deep root watering, it's made such a difference in, like, even with my tomatoes. And I was telling Johnny, okay, I didn't know if I pronounced it right. He's from Ghana. He's my new buddy. Huh? Okay. And so I was explaining to him about watering. He's over there watering the tomato plant. No. Okay. Please don't take this wrong. Watering. And this is what we do. We're trained to, from a kid, oh, let's just go out and water. Woo! And all the water goes all over everywhere. And then all your plant is all soaking wet. And then the roots are dry. So, I've been doing a lot of research the last few years on deep root watering. And that's one of the things that I found very beneficial in my own garden. So I bought my husband the long hose thing, right? And show him how to water, how much it needs. When he comes out from watering, he's much quicker now, first of all, because he's just watering the roots and not the whole world out there. And when you water like that, all the leaves get wet. And always water in the morning, early in the morning if you can, before it's even light out, if you can, whatever. But as early as you can. And when you water like that, your hose is making, like, splashing the bacteria, the dirt up onto the plant, onto the leaves. And then it starts creating mold, fungus, mildew, whatever. I end up, and this may be much different than how Jerry does it. I'm just telling you how I do it, okay? By the time that my plants are ready to be picked, they're almost naked. I mean, from the top, they're naked. All right, so all this, there's nothing on them. So, and sucker them, make sure you get them suckers off them tomato plants. And I found that I have not any problems with my tomatoes. None of the blossom end raw, septoria, or however they pronounce. And so that has worked very well for me. And I'm a big tomato aficionado. I do a lot of canning, make all my own sausage paste, all that stuff. And hopefully we can have a canning class this year. That would be fabulous. But because like I'll usually grow around 18 or 20 different kinds of tomatoes. Yeah, this year I'm cutting back because I got a lot of other stuff I'm doing, but 7 or 8 types at least. And I'll probably end up with 10 or 12, but I think that it's very important to make sure that the leaves don't get wet from watering, like splashing up all that bacteria and dirt from the ground. All right, so that's all I'm going to say about tomatoes. Although I have a whole ritual when I plant them. I do it the old-fashioned way. The way the old farmers down south, they put fish heads and they put a whole egg. So I go down at least a foot. I put a whole egg right down the bottom. I got pictures to prove it. It's like, really? Why would you do that? But then as the plant grows and the roots coming down, and the pressure, and it breaks that egg, the calcium from that egg and from the shell and from the albumin and everything it adds to the calcium in the soil. And the guts, the fish guts, I know it's gross and disgusting, and some people don't want to do this kind of stuff, okay? Whether you use that or not, that's fine. But fish emulsion is one of the main things that I use for fertilizing. Even a foliar spray with, I do foliar spray with like either the fish emulsion or, I'm trying to think of, worm castings, worm tea. And it's, I guess that's vermiculture, they call that, right, Jerry? Vermiculture? So anyways, worm castings are one of the best fertilizers. And
this is the fish emulsion she's talking
it,
about,
yeah,
that you use. And this encourages the spread of the mycorrhizal fungi that we were talking about this morning.
See? That's it. That's what it's all about. So when the soil is fertile, your plant's going to be fertile too. All right? So I know I'm here to talk about culinary, but I am going to try to give a few pointers as I go, things that are helpful to me that might also turn out to be helpful and beneficial to you. One thing I suggest everybody has is one of these. Keep it. I keep it. I don't go out in the garden at all without this. That's on the back of my pants or whatever I'm wearing. And that's very, I just want to mention that because you don't ever want to go and pull leaves off, you know what I mean? You can break them, but I personally prefer to either use a clean knife and keep your tools clean if you can. A clean knife or a pair of kitchen shears, garden shears. I have these. When you get tools, make sure you get good ones. I've had these for like 20-some years. This was Smith and Hawken, I think, but get a good pair. Don't go get a, you know, chintzy pair, because then you're going to go 2 years from now and get another chintzy pair. I'm a girl, and I'm proud to be a girl. I don't care about this gender stuff, all right? Men and women, that's what we are. I'm a woman, so I use a small shovel. So that's my little tiny shovel that I love so much. I didn't bring a lot of tools, but I have some pretty cool tools at home. And this one here's, I got this one last year. This is a wicked tool. And it does a good job. This one's a medium, like heavy, not heavy duty, but medium duty. But I use this thing all the time. I just go out with my little tools in the early morning when you're looking for tomato hornworms. And if you're looking for tomato hornworms, you ever seen one of them? You guys seen those things? Oh, they're the nastiest looking things you ever saw in your life. They're about this big, about the size of your finger. And if you see them crawling on your tomato, oh, you better get rid of them. What you do is you get, I have one of the black lights. So a little black flash, they call it a black light flashlight. And you go out early in the morning or just after dark, and they show up fluorescent green. And when you see them, you take your little handy dandy bucket. Now you have to have a bucket in your garden. A bucket for all the bugs and stuff that you pick off your plants, you know. I found a thing the other day, Jerry. I don't know what it was. It was like a larva, this big, red, dark brown red. Never seen anything like that in my life. All these years I've been gardening, never saw one. Anyways, I picked it off. I was planting potatoes, and so I put them in a bucket. But you wanna, if you're having a problem with like tomato hornworm, squash bugs, how many people go crazy with squash bugs? Oh my goodness! I've been using what's it called? Floating row cover. Floating row cover. It's white, clear, see-through mesh thing, and you can put the hoops out and put, like, say I do Brussels sprouts, broccoli, any of those brassica things, right? Brussels sprouts, broccoli, cauliflower, cabbage, those guys. If you don't cover them, you're going to have those little white moths. They come, they lay their eggs underneath the leaf. And if you go out and you got to inspect your leaves, if you see them, they might lay 50 or 100, who knows how many eggs underneath the leaves. If you don't get rid of them, they're going to decimate that plant, no matter what. All you got to do is a couple really simple, easy ways around that. You can wash them off with just, the soap that's Dr. Bonner's. But what do they call that? Biodegradable soap. Okay, a little bit of soap and water, and they'll come right off. And they have this exoskeleton that and diatomaceous earth is good too. Diatomaceous earth, that works too. But with the water, that really works well. And they have the skeleton, this exoskeleton that they breathe through. So that soap acts like as a surfactant, and it sticks to the outside layer, and they can't breathe, so they die. Yeah. So there's a lot of different ways you can take even tape, and I take like duct tape backwards, so the sticky part's out, and I go out and I just go underneath the leaf if I see the eggs, right, and I just take those eggs off there, because if once they get into the nymph stage, forget it. You're going to have a problem. Mm-hmm. So this is what Jerry taught me a little bit about this the last couple of years in some of his talks and stuff. I didn't really know about this before, but it's a mycorrhizal fungi. Did you talk about it today, Jerry? Yeah. So you guys probably already heard about that, right? And he plants his stuff, or we plant our stuff. You dip it right into the root, right into that before you put it in the ground. Or you can even water it in.
Put it on the seed and it saves you time.
There you go, on the seed. Oh, there you go. Ah, okay. What if it's a sprouted plant and everything? Just
we're gonna be putting it on the seed
and
inoculating all our seeds.
Oh, good. I want to see that too. So that's really something I didn't know before, and that's why I'm stressing the fact of learning as much as you can about the soil. It's like another whole world under there, right? One thing I'm very much into is companion planting, and I do have some information that I typed out that I can give to Tina, and you can make copies and give to people. This is stuff I've been writing down for years, just accumulated information and knowledge about what things do well, like what complements the other, what is a detriment maybe to the plant if you plant it too close to certain things, But like onions and leeks, for example, they repel carrot fly. The maggot that hits the carrot and it turns into a fly. And so, just little things like that you'll find some helpful tips in here, like what to plant, like your onions near. Or your oregano, what to plant your parsnips and your parsley and all. These are little tips that I've learned over the years that took me years to learn. And I'm happy to share them with you. So, one of the big things is the sister plants. Are you doing that over here?
Companion planting?
With the sister, like the corn, squash, and green bean?
No, we're not doing the three sisters of the Iroquois and the Eastern Native American.
Well, that's one thing I do at my house. I like to do, I have teepees. So I put the teepees up, and I do the things that grow up. So one of my themes this year was grow up. Grow up. Not out. Grow up. Because if you have a little bit of land, like Jerry has a lot of land, but I have 1/4 of an acre. So I do what's called small plot, high yield gardening. And so I have to grow up, because if I didn't, I wouldn't have room to grow anything. I encourage everybody to get going out there, and the sooner the better, because time is wrapping up, and we have to be able to be self-sufficient. If we're totally reliant on the government, we're going to have issues. And it's going to be hard to stand up if we don't have a way to keep our families fed and well. So anyways, there's so many different herbs. I just want to touch on the ones that I brought today a little bit. Now basil, everybody knows about basil. Um, if you, they're very prolific. If you keep picking them every week, that plant will last you all year. I mean, all summer, you know. But it can also be used in all different types of cuisines from around the world. And there's all different types of basil. And unfortunately, I had a little problem. I was hardening off. I had started 12 different types of basil to bring here. And I was hardening them off, and I kind of had a bad experience. They got caught in a windstorm, and they didn't do well. So, but basil, there's the Thai basil, which we brought today, and that's over there. And Genovese, that's the most common for like Italian food. But there's so many different types. There's lemon basil, globe basil. I mean, like I say, I started 12 different types, and I'm still gonna do it again. I'm gonna try more. I've already started more, and hopefully get some in before it's too late. Chives to me is one of my very favorite. I absolutely adore chives. There are some over there to plant out, but I just want to show you. Chives, leeks, anything from the allium family itself is so beneficial. It protects other plants because it deters some of the not so beneficial insects that you might, not want. Chives, like this one here, again, we grew everything from seed. This will last you like a lifetime, because once you plant it once, you never have to plant it again. And with chives, they're the very first thing that I harvest every spring. So I have a lot of them growing because they're so great. And you can dry them, and you can put them into anything that you'd want, like a little bit of an onion flavor in. I mean, you could virtually put them in almost anything, except for sweets maybe. But you can put chives into bread. You can bake your bread, put herbs into your bread. But this chive plant, for example, I would, when this is about this high, I would start cutting them. Within 2 weeks, you're cutting them again. It's called cut and come again. So it's anything from the allium family is good to plant near pretty much anything in your garden. Anything like leeks, scallions, shallots, or shallots, however you like to say it. I love shallots. They're just a little sweeter than a regular onion, and they're just softer and gentler and more persuasive. I'm not going to get into the culinary part of it, but I can really get into describing food, let me tell you. But yeah, with the onions, once you grow them, and a lot of them come back like the following year. Like I have those, what do they call those, Egyptian walking onions? Oh, they're so cool looking. They had the craziest looking things you ever saw, but you never have to plant them again. So a lot of these things, like the chives, they just keep coming back, But yeah, I highly encourage, if nothing else, from a culinary perspective, how many people use onions every day? Garlic. Okay, so what I decided a couple years ago was I really took a strong look at like what I actually use. Some things I grow just because they're pretty, and I like to look at them. I like to see them grow. Other things I grow to eat, right, and to share. But then there's things that you can grow that will last you all year long. Yeah, green beans, you can can them and all that stuff. But all these culinary herbs, they can all be dried. And they can all be put into different things, like if you make jams and jellies and pickles and breads or whatever, they can be used in those things for flavor. Teas, you can make teas. The lemon verbena is fabulous for that. I just want to see what I have here on my onion. If I have everything in here. got pages of stuff here, folks. Sorry. Oh yeah, here we go. All right, so with onions, you want to plant those near your beets, cabbage, any cabbage family, carrots, chamomile, lettuce, parsnips, but keep them away from beans and peas. The onions and the peas and the beans don't get along. I don't know if it's because of the nitrogen that they're taking out of the soil or what, but this is tried and true stuff, okay? And it will deter, onions will deter most pests, including maggots, because they're under the ground growing instead of above, you know? So that is helpful to know. With dill, you want to plant dill near your cabbages and your onions. Dill, keep them away from the carrots though. Dill and carrots do not get along, but cucumbers love dill. When I do my cucumbers, I always plant dill and radish. And you let the radish go to seed. You don't just let them grow and then pick them. Let them go to seed because they are a natural, I don't like to use the word deterrent, but that's what they are. They smell that, and then they don't go for the cucumber. The cucumber beetle, you know, the little striped thing that so hard to get rid of. Those. So cucumbers love dill and radishes. Parsley is a biennial, so it'll grow this year and next year, and it'll go to seed next year. So you always want parsley. Parsley is a blood purifier. So with parsley, let's say the doctor told you had cancer. You want to start eating a lot of parsley. You want to put parsley in everything, till everything that comes out the other side is green. I'm serious. There have been doctors and pastors who have been healed of cancer from going total, plant-based, no meat, no cheese, no dairy, none of that, and a lot of greens. Because the greens, God put all this green stuff. God must love the color green, I'm thinking. Because everything is green that's beneficial, it seems like. There's a whole rainbow color with the food and everything. But cilantro is another one that's so good for the blood. It's a cleanser for the blood. Parsley's a cleanser for the blood. So if you have blood cancer, wouldn't you want to clean your blood up a little bit? So just keep that in mind that, God put all these things on the earth for a reason. I don't think he just put them there just to look good. They all have a benefit to us, So parsley, and then we have sage. Now sage, you can get a lot of different, sage, types of sage, lots of variegations or whatever. But sage is a really wonderful herb. They use it a lot in Italian cooking. But you think of it at Thanksgiving time, right? To go into the stuffing. Well, it's not just for stuffing. It can be used in a plethora of ways. If you're planting them, you want to plant your sage near your cucumbers, lettuce, melons, peas, nasturtiums, and any root crops. So keep that in mind because, excuse me, I'm looking at radishes. I was like, wait a minute, that's my radish stuff. That was with radishes. I apologize. But you always want to plant the radish with your cucumbers, lettuces, and your root crops. They do deter the cucumber beetle, which is great. With sage, you want to plant those near your carrots, tomatoes, and cabbage plants. All right? And keep the sage away from the cucumbers. So that's been my experience with sage. But I like sage a lot, and it's very pleasant. And we should have a culinary, cooking class just on, how to actually use the herbs, because in my mind, I'm a little torn because I'm here to plant, but I'm also talking about cooking. So for me, it's it's a good thing, but it can be a little confusing when you get a little older. You know, it's not as easy to keep everything straight, I guess. But this is a romaine that I picked this morning. And I planted this in March. Sorry. And it's starting to head, but it looks pretty good, you know. And takes very little care, you know. And you have to have a lot of greens growing, and you have to succession plant them. So when you're planting your romaine or your iceberg or any field greens or whatever greens, make sure and put some seeds around, scatter. They don't need to be too deep at all, almost right near the surface, really. And then you'll have like lettuces will keep coming in. I do that succession planting with a lot of things, with peas, with beans, cucumbers. Once the cucumber plant's gone by, how many cucumbers can you get off one plant? I mean, it depends on the type of cucumber, right? I mean, a little cornichons, you can get a lot. You can get a lot of little pickling cucumbers. Them big cucumbers, maybe not so many. But the thing is, when you succession plant, so 2 weeks from the time you put in that little sprout plant or whatever, put a couple more sprouts, just a couple in there, right? And then once those are gone, you got new cucumbers coming in. And so that's a good thing. I'm sure you all know about how invasive that mint is, but from you do have to plant them separately, or else they're so invasive that they'll take over your bed wherever you plant them. I'm always pulling mint out everywhere. Same thing with lemon balm, which is over there. It's the one with the red flower on it there. So once you plant lemon balm and mint, you'll never have to plant it again. And there's like 100 kinds of mint. I don't know how many, but I know there's a lot. And with the lemon verbena, lemon balm, bee balm, I know that lemon balm has a whole list of different names that you may have heard them by. But lemon, it goes in everything. You can use it in making pies. You can use it in teas. You can use it in anything that you'd like a lemon flavor in. And I'm sure that it's, because it's lemon, it's like, has some astringent property, I'm sure. I'm not sure exactly on that, but I'm pretty sure that there's some kind of property that's like cleansing to the system. Anything with green, I think, is cleansing anyways. And then after sage, I have thyme. Thyme you want to plant near your squash. I have a little joke, never enough time. I'm always saying that. And that can be planted near all your garden crops. So it's especially good, beneficial near your cabbage plants. It deters the cabbage moth. And there's many types of thyme. So my personal favorite is a citrus thyme. It's called lemon thyme or golden thyme. There's French thyme. There's all different types of thyme. And once you plant that, you'll never have to plant it again. So some of these are annual herbs. Others, will come back year after year. Tomatoes, which is not an herb, but I thought I should mention because that's what most of us are like. Oh, my tomato plants, that's my pride and joy is my tomatoes, So with the tomatoes, there's a whole list of plants that love to be near tomatoes. Asparagus is one. Where'd that lady go with the asparagus? Roberta grew this. Asparagus. I just think that's so beautiful. Look at how gorgeous that is. And it's so buttery and creamy and yummy. And it's over here next to some oregano that we picked over there. Now, oregano, you know, is one of those, you can't make pizza without oregano. Now, you know, they all say basil, but let me tell you, you have to have oregano with pizza. Doesn't have to be with spaghetti sauce, but it has to be with pizza. All right? Take that from a chef's perspective. Not that it won't go. It'll go nicely with your spaghetti sauce, but I'm saying if you make your pizza without oregano, shame on you. All right. I also want to talk a little bit about cayenne pepper, and I know we have our medicinal herb presentation going to happen, but last year I think I grew 12 kinds of peppers. Now, you know, I'm not one of those who can just grow one kind and just, because with my chef expertise, I'm like, oh, let me try this with that, oh, whatever. And I started making hot sauces. I know some people don't do hot, right? Some people don't like hot peppers here, maybe. Well, I personally love them. And if they're handled properly and they're cleaned properly, what I'm saying there is this. When you cut open a pepper, okay, we're talking green peppers or any kind, jalapenos, whatever. They're green, I know. But you want to get the rib out and all the seeds. That's where all the heat is. So when you are cutting up your peppers and stuff, and you just lay it down flat. I don't have my knife over here, but you just lay it down flat on the board, and then you just, you know, get that slimy white, whatever that is, membrane off the inside. That's where all the heat is. It's also where all the sliminess is. You ever notice peppers can get slimy? Like if you cut them ahead of time? If you do that, you take a paper towel. So what I do is I take my peppers. Say I'm going to be cooking all week, and I know I'm going to need peppers for this and that, right? I'll clean my peppers maybe, you know, ahead of time, and wrap them in paper towel. So you just take and wrap one over the other so they're not touching each other. When they touch each other, that's when they start getting slimy, and they release their moisture. By taking that rib out, you're also taking out part of that potential to become slimy. I know that probably seems trivial to some people, but I'm such a fanatic when it comes to, I want my food perfect. You know, God gave me a perfect pepper, I'm going to take care of it. And so you want to make sure that you get rid of all those seeds and stuff, because that's where all your heat is. Now, thyme, we talked about, deters cabbage moth. All right, so keep that in mind. Spearmint. Now, everybody loves spearmint. I love mint. You know, there's so many different types. I've kind of settled more towards loving spearmint than peppermint, even though peppermint is great for the stomach, any kind of digestive, gastric problems of any kind. You definitely want, if you drink mint tea every day of your life, you probably never have another stomach ache or any, a lot of digestive, unless you already have problems like that. But yeah, definitely spearmint to me is the best of all the mints. And they're very invasive. So I had suggested that we put them in separate, you know, containers. And that's where the screwdriver came in. So I put a couple holes in the bottom, and I was trying to get across this new technique that I have been using recently, where instead of all the holes in the bottom, you put some around the sides. So I leave about an inch, so that when there's one or two in the bottom, but instead of having them all in the bottom and it's sitting on the ground, and yeah, it'll eventually dribble out, whatever. But when it gets dry, it gets dry. So I put the holes here, maybe 2 on each side, all the way around, and then when it drains out, there's still a little bit of residual moisture in the bottom to keep that plant in that, you know, container moist. Just a little tip that I do, you know. So that's very helpful with invasive plants. All of my herbs at home are almost all of them are in containers, and I use a lot of those potato bags. You know, the last few years I've been growing my potatoes in bags. Last year I grew them in boxes because the Lord impressed me to let my big garden rest. So every 7 years we should give our gardens a sabbatical, and when you do that, the ground has a chance to like replenish, and the microbes that you've taken out of the soil, and of course you want to treat it before you just leave it you don't want to leave it bare naked. Nobody wants me laying around bare naked, so you got to put some stuff over the ground. And what would you suggest, Jerry?
Cover crops in the fall.
There you go. Cover crops, the oats, the rye.
Well, that dies. The rye and the vetch someone was talking about, they'll go and produce, and the next year they'll grow, and they'll keep the ground producing.
Okay.
And keep feeding the microbes.
Okay.
Or you can just let the weeds grow themselves.
Oh, yeah.
They'll replenish.
They'll replenish too, yeah. Yeah, that's a really interesting topic. I would love to hear you talk more about that, because I'm fascinated with that myself, and I think a lot of people don't realize or know that information that much, so it's helpful to know. So I'm sorry I keep bouncing around back and forth. I really like to be over around you guys. So let's see, spearmint and then rosemary. Now, rosemary started from seed, little teeny plants, you'll see them over there. And I've never grown rosemary from seed because I was always sort of, that like with lavender, certain things are very hard to get them going for some reason. I don't know why, but it just takes weeks sometimes. So I always just bought a rosemary plant. This year I'm like growing everything from seed. That's a big, tall order. I wasn't able to fulfill that. I did buy a couple things, but mostly I did pretty good this year with starting everything from seed. Oops, hang on here. So with the rosemary, rosemary is a wonderful plant. Again, a lot of Italian cooking, they rely on rosemary. It's very strong. It doesn't go with everything, but it's a very nice, subtle herb that, when used in moderation, can be very wonderful in your food. So, again, that leans a little more towards Mediterranean-style cooking. And oregano, we talked about a little bit oregano. And then cilantro. Cilantro, to me, is another thing that has to be done in succession, because it bolts really easy. Cilantro is something I found you want to start it early, like in the cold weather. Certain things are better to start in the cold, like the carrots and the parsnips and various things like that. Cilantro is one of them because it bolts really easy in the heat. And lettuces too, they like to be early spring or in the fall, and so certain things you start early, or you start for your fall crop, like your beets. Do you do beets in the spring, Jerry? Yeah. My beets are doing good this year. Sometimes I have problems with them, but they're doing pretty well. Pole beans is what I do with the teepees. So you can buy these little gizmos that go, it's like a 5-arm thing, and you can put your teepee, your poles, the 6-foot poles right in there. You can get bamboo poles or whatever you want to use. But I do, every year I try to do some kind of teepee garden, and pole beans, squash, zucchini, of course, is good for that. Anything that grows up like that, viney, cucumber is good. And then underneath, so picture you've got your teepee, right? Big teepee. Underneath I put lettuces or something that likes shade. Because, again, lettuces are either usually spring or fall. But if you have them in the garden growing, they like a little shade. So I put them underneath something that's tall, like a cucumber plant, something that's going to shade it, you know. And again, growing up is a little different than growing out. So, hang on one second. So cilantro, potatoes love cilantro. So in that potato patch over there, stick some cilantro plants around. Try it. It really does work. And then, corn does well with peas and potatoes, beans, cucumbers, pumpkin, and squashes. So it kind of lends itself towards that Three Sisters thing. As far as the culinary use of potatoes is endless. I mean, whole cultures have lived off of potatoes. So I do a lot of potatoes. I try to. I had a lot of years of trial and error, but finally it seems like they're doing okay. But sweet potatoes I did last year for the first time. And, they don't like cold feet. So you got to make sure that the ground is about probably, 60, 65 degrees maybe for sweet potatoes?
Up in the air, and it warms up faster.
Oh. Oh, on a mound, yeah. Well, I saw recently where they say they recommend to put a black plastic bag down on the soil to bring the heat to the soil and warm up the soil before you plant the sweet potatoes. Yeah. I want to mention again about the celery. There's a process with celery and leeks that's called blanching. I know Jerry knows about blanching, but it's where you actually they like a sandy soil, a very loose sandy soil. This is my experience, okay? And blanching is when you kind of pull the dirt up around. So as the leek is growing up, you're pulling the dirt up around. And celery, like when you buy leeks in the grocery store, you see all this dirt down in them. That's why, because they keep mounding them up, and that's called blanching. So anyways, they say that you should carry a little cayenne with you all the time because you never know if you or someone else might need it, And I put this in food. I put it in almost everything I cook. It's a blood mover. Cayenne is a blood mover. So you have to make sure you keep your blood moving, right? And then I've got sage over here. I think we talked a little bit about sage before. But I like sage. I don't use it a lot, but I do like it. I think that everybody should have at least 6 or 7 herbs. The ones you determine, the ones that you believe are the ones that you would use the most. I have this great little book here. I've had this for so long. It's the Cook's Encyclopedia of Herbs. And in here gives you so many ideas. Now, there's tons of books. This was like something I got in the 70s, I'm sure, when I went to cooking school. But it has so many cool ideas for dressings. We could get into specifics, but you won't remember any of it, probably. I think that, we really need like one of those classes where we do a hands-on, especially harvest season. We need to do like a dehydrating class because people really need to know how to preserve their food, whether it's with canning, pickling, brining, fermenting. Fermenting is very simple, and you can save a lot of food product by fermenting. And it's just salt and water, maybe lemon juice, and it's so simple. But yeah, there's endless uses for culinary herbs. A lot of them can be made into teas, into sachets, lotions, potpourris, hair rinses, skin, tonics and lotions and things like that. So I think that you just have to find out like the herbs that you use the most and what you really will use. and grow those. Yes. Oh. Yes, it does. That's the coriander seed. Yeah. And it's also called Chinese parsley. Yeah. I love all the herbs. I especially adore basil. And you know that basil is amazing because, like I mentioned to Jerry, I always plant basil, parsley, and marigolds around my tomatoes. All my tomato patch, those are the things. And then after the tomatoes go by in the fall, you've got all these beautiful marigolds still growing. And you look out in the garden, it doesn't look all bare and everything because you got beautiful flowers. But it gives off beneficial nematodes, the under the ground things, little critters, and it really helps the plant, protects the plant from invaders or unwanted pests. So basil is great to plant with tomatoes, and it repels the flies and mosquitoes. You wouldn't think basil could do that, but it does. So let me see here. What else I want to say before we get over there? We want to go over and plant a few things. One thing I wanted to mention was to get yourself a good book. You can probably go online and order like this book, for example. Now, this is from the editors of Organic Gardening magazine. For years, I was I couldn't wait for my Organic Garden magazine to come. And I learned so much back in the 70s and 80s about gardening in my earlier years. But this book here, and then there's another one by Rodale Press that's very, very good. You can order this book right now, probably for $8 on, because nobody wants to plant, nobody wants to work, they all just want to go to the grocery store and pop a lean cuisine in the microwave. Which, by the way, if you put food in the microwave, it completely destroys any nutritional value that was in it. Totally. And it carries over radiation into the food. So when you're eating that food, you're putting radiation into your body. Doesn't make any sense.